You know, horror movie sequels tend to get a bad rep, and rightfully so. Most horror sequels fall in between one of three categories. It was wow, that was pointless. And the infamous third one, which is, damn, that was absolute dog shit. And because of that, a lot of people have a real negative opinion towards horror movie sequels. And even though the studios know that these movies are god-awful for some strange reason, the horror genre tends to be the one genre that just can't stop making damn sequels. But if you've been watching horror movies long enough, bro, then you would know that even in a sea of BS movies, there are actually a ton of horror movie sequels that are either just as good and sometimes even better than the original one. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, today let's count down my picks for the 13 best horror movie sequels that don't suck. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Stoney the Great. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, hit the like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified every single time I drop. And for all my return viewers, welcome back, gang. Today I want to talk horror movie sequels because I am sometimes a sequel defender. A lot of people automatically discredit a movie just because it's a sequel, constantly comparing it to the original, and a lot of times even when those sequels are great, people still don't give them the credit they deserve. But even with that, honestly, there are a lot of horror movie sequels that do get the respect they deserve. So this list is in no particular order, so it's going to be a mix of some critically acclaimed sequels and just some of my personal picks. But to kick this list off with number 13, I got Hellbound, Hellraiser II. Now, while the Hellraiser franchise isn't my favorite horror franchise of all time, because they definitely have more bad movies than good ones, Pinhead is still my favorite horror icon. I got him tatted right here on my hand. And as amazing as the first Hellraiser was, bro, honestly, it seemed very impossible for them to recreate that magic. Yet somehow they pulled it off. I would even argue that Hellbound is damn near just as good as the first one. And I think what helped Hellbound, honestly, is the fact that, one, Clive Barker's involvement was still 100%, and the fact that this one was still loosely based on the novel, like it still pulled from the source material that the first one pulled from. It's not until we got to Hellraiser 3 where the book basically became irrelevant and the studio just started doing shit. But while it may not be as good as the first one, in my opinion, I cannot discredit Hellbound Hellraiser 2 for the greatness that it is. Therefore, it deserves its place in my top 13. Now, while I don't think Hellbound is as good as the first one, I do give it a lot of respect, and I do think it definitely deserves to be recognized as one of the best horror movie sequels. Next up at number 12, I got Dr. Sleep from 2019. I have a hot take, and it might piss a lot of y'all off, but I gotta be honest, I don't like The Shining. I never did. Do not care for that movie. Y'all remember what Peter Griffin said about The Godfather, right? It insists upon itself. Bro, The Shining, in my opinion, is like every film bro's favorite horror movie. The same dudes who watch Oppenheimer for fun are the same ones who will probably burn you at the stake if you say you don't like The Shining. But here's the thing, I've never felt bad for that take simply because Stephen King don't even like The Shining. I, just like Stephen King, prefer the Shining miniseries that came on TV back in 1997. I think the series told the story a whole lot better. Dr. Sleep is a fantastic movie. And even though I didn't read the Dr. Sleep book, I have heard from a lot of people who have read the book that Dr. Sleep is one of those very rare cases where the movie adaptation is actually better than the source material. And also from what I know about the Dr. Sleep book is that it doesn't like really relate to The Shining that much. It's like a loose spin-off kind of sequel. Yet somehow when Mike Flanagan did Dr. Sleep, he blended the two stories together perfectly to make the story a direct follow-up. But hey, bro, it's Mike Flanagan. We talking about one of the GOATs of modern horror. So of course this movie was good. And no, I don't think Dr. Sleep being better than The Shining is a hot take, because even people who like The Shining also agree. The hot take here is that I don't like The Shining at all. So coming in at number 11 though, I got The Conjuring 2. Listen, I'm not trying to piss nobody off with this video, but I know that some of my takes might do just that. I would argue that The Conjuring 2, while definitely not better than the first Conjuring, is damn near close. Because let's be honest, bro, the first Conjuring wasn't some groundbreaking movie. It was another rinse and repeat possession story. They just did it damn good. And that's basically kind of the same thing with The Conjuring 2. I think the plot twist in this movie was really good. And I don't even see people recognize this movie as having a plot twist, because for the first like half of the movie, they made you think that it was the old man that was doing the haunting, when in actuality it was Valak doing the haunting. And that also goes to show you just how powerful of a demon Valak was. I genuinely believe that the Conjuring universe has more bad movies than good ones. The Conjuring as a franchise itself is literally 50-50. The first one, banger. The second one, banger. The third one, what the hell were y'all thinking? And the fourth one, bro, I signed up for a horror movie, not a family drama. What the hell was that? And The Conjuring Part 2, the one thing that I hate about this movie is the fact that it led to The Nun and The Nun Nun 2. That, in my opinion, is the only thing this movie did wrong. But other than that, The Conjuring Part 2 is a great horror movie sequel. If you agree, I rock with you. If you don't agree, I'm sorry, I don't really care. At the number 10 spot, I have probably the most obvious pick on this list, Final Destination 2. Bro, Final Destination 2 is so good that it will make you look at the first one like, you know, you're okay, but I'm about to go watch the second one instead. Honestly, I think Final Destination 2 is one of the prime examples of a sequel that did exactly what a sequel was supposed to do. People forget sequels are meant to be better than the first one, because if you wasn't going to try to do what you did the first time better the second time, then why did you even try again? I don't think a studio would intentionally make a whole movie that they know is not going to be that great. And with the second Final Destination, you can tell the studio finally had a grip on what they were trying to do. The studio also did something that I think is extremely impressive, and honestly, not a lot of movies can do this. They somehow made a movie that was more violent, more brutal, and way more gory than the first one, but somehow made it more fun and lighthearted. Like, I don't even know how that works. First Final Destination was depressing, like dark and dreary and extremely hopeless. The second one felt more like an adventure. And even though, like I said, the kills in that movie were much more brutal, way more gory, and it definitely was a more shocking film, it just had this aesthetic to it that made it very fun to watch. And the impact this movie had on my generation, top tier, bro. To this day, ask any millennial, would you drive behind a log truck? And they will probably slap you in the damn face, because hell no. I feel so confident about this movie, bro, that if I had to make a top 10 best horror movies list, like of all time, Final Destination would easily be in the top 5. But coming in at number 9, I'm coming back with another hot take, because when it comes to the Scream movies, everybody gives credit to Scream 2. You know, direct follow-up, came out the very next year, and it was still just as good as a lot of people think. But I want to take it a little further ahead, and I'm gonna go with Scream 4, the most underrated movie in the Scream franchise. This is when the franchise started to adapt to modern times. Mind you, this was the first Scream movie that we got in like 11 years at that point. Scream 3 came out in the year 2000. Scream 4 came out in 2011. Many people had already wrote this franchise off. It had been a decade since we got another one, so everybody just treated Scream like a trilogy and left it alone. So they had all of this time to study the current pop culture climate, study the different advances in technology, and incorporate the current landscape of horror movies at that time. And what they came up with was the best thing that the Scream franchise could have done for the 2010s. Scream 4 truly reflected the time period that it came out. And to keep it a buck, I'm actually glad they didn't make another Scream movie until the 2020s, because I don't think another Scream movie could have captured the 2010s better than what Scream 4 did. I give this movie my highest respect and my highest praise. I have been defending this movie for years. I think Scream 4 is an underrated, goated sequel. Next up at number 8, I got Day of the Dead. Now, if most people had to pick a Romero sequel, they would have went with Dawn of the Dead, but I've seen that on so many people's lists. I gotta be a little different. I'm going with Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead had a lot more riding on it than Dawn did. All Dawn had to do was be better than Night, but Day had to be just as good, if not better, than Dawn and Night. This movie was going up against two classics, and they did something totally different. And the gore and practical effects in Day of the Dead still hold up to this day. Even for somebody who's desensitized to horror movies, if you show them Day of the Dead from 1985, I promise you, those special effects will still shock them. One of the best zombie movies of all time. At number 7, I got a very obvious ass pick, Aliens. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I put Aliens on here because I know for a fact if I didn't, y'all would have jumped me in the comments. So this one is a fan pick. I did this one for crowd service. However, with that being said, I do think Aliens genuinely does deserve to be on the list though. Yeah, it's a very cookie cutter copy and paste answer, but it's that way for a reason. Like, it's not highly respected for nothing. It's highly respected because it's a damn good movie, and it's a perfect follow-up to the original one. Even though some people do debate whether or not this is a horror movie, I don't see how that can be a debate. But yeah, Aliens is an undeniable goated sequel. Like, it needs to be on anybody's best horror movie sequels list at least once. At number 6, I'm coming back with what might be a hot take, but honestly, I don't think so. Halloween 2018. The reason why I love Halloween 2018 so much, bro, is because it gave us the same type of vibe and aesthetic of the original one, but made it for a modern audience. Had a lot more adrenaline. It was a lot more brutal. Had a little more action to it. I think Nick Castle was great coming back as Michael Myers in this movie. I personally think it should have ended his story here, because if it did, we could have avoided Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. And no, I am not in that batch of people that think that Halloween Ends in the next 20 years is going to get the Halloween 3 treatment. No, it ain't. Halloween 2018 is goated, and they should have left it right here. At number 5, I got the most surprising movie on this list for me, Psycho 2. Now, making sequels to movies that came out like 20, 30 plus years ago is something that's very common in Hollywood nowadays. I mean, they gave us a sequel to Beetlejuice in like 2024, and Beetlejuice came out in the damn 80s. I'm honestly surprised we ain't got another Back to the Future movie yet. Legacy sequels are running Hollywood right now. However, that was not very common back in 1983. So them making a sequel to Psycho over 20 years later, huge risk. The director for this movie actually wanted to film it in black and white, but the studio did push back against that. But I gotta give Tom Holland his respect because he went out of his way to make this movie feel like a Hitchcock film. A lot of moments in the movie are even shot the exact same way. They reuse a lot of the same locations, so it didn't feel like an out of place sequel. And they even brought back the original actor who played Norman Bates the first time. Cause come on now, would you have really wanted to see anybody play Norman Bates other than Anthony Perkins? I don't think so. On top of that, Tom Holland even did something with this movie that deserves all its respect. He completely changed the tone of this movie and turned it into more of a horror mystery with a lot of psychological elements to it. And in a way, he like humanized Norman Bates and made you feel bad for him. The same guy that we were calling a nutcase and a psycho from the first one, we ended up rooting for him. And you see that he actually was a good person. And I think that's what makes this movie so fantastic, is because unlike a lot of movies where the killer is trying to be better and they're really not, Norman actually was. He had did the work, he healed, but he ran into some situations that was hell-bent on pulling him back to his old self. Now, I know a lot of people have seen this movie, but I know there's a lot of people who haven't, so I won't spoil anything. But if you have not seen Psycho 2, it is available to watch for free on Tubi. Trust and believe when I tell you, bro, that this is one of the best horror movie sequels you will ever see. It is one of the best 80s horror movies you will ever see, and from a quality standpoint, it is one of the best looking early 80s movies you will ever see. Coming in at number 4, man, I got Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. Yeah, I know, Dream Warriors is everybody's favorite Freddy Krueger sequel. I don't give a damn. I'm going with New Nightmare, bro. First of all, if it wasn't for New Nightmare, we would have never got Scream. New Nightmare walked so Scream could run, and that's just facts, bro. This movie took the meta approach to a whole new level that hadn't even really been established yet. Bro, this movie went so meta that they had Robert Englund in the movie playing as Robert Englund. They had Heather Langenkamp playing Heather Langenkamp. They were actors in the Nightmare movies playing themselves in real life, and a demon disguising itself as Freddy Krueger manifested itself from their stories and from their memories of the movie. Bro, that is sick. I absolutely love this movie, dog. Not gonna hold you, bro. And honestly, this was one of the best like send-offs for any horror movie character. At number 3, man, I got Bride of Chucky. Would you call me crazy if I said that other than the first Child's Play movie, Bride of Chucky is my favorite Chucky movie? As a matter of fact, no. Let me be honest. It is my favorite Chucky movie. Yeah, I like this one better than the first one. Bro, the Chucky franchise literally did exactly what the Evil Dead did. Once they realized that, hey, you know, maybe this hardcore horror stuff just ain't working for us, they decided to get silly. They leaned into how ridiculous the concept of Chucky was. Bro, you got a freaking doll that is like 2 feet tall running around with a butcher knife and he cusses like a damn sailor. That sounds hilarious, so let it be hilarious. I respect that so much, bro. Instead of them trying to rinse and repeat the same story over and over and over again, the director said, hey man, look, this ain't working, we gotta try something different. Then them adding Jennifer Tilly just took this movie to a whole new level, bro. They turned it into like a horror comedy tragedy romance movie, because underneath the comedy and some of the horror elements that were there in the movie, this is a romance film. You got a young couple in the movie that's running away so they can protect the love they have, and then you got Chucky and old girl in the most toxic relationship of all time. And this movie featured dolls humping. Never expected to see that, but at the age of 8 years old, I witnessed this in a theater, and it literally never left my brain. That is actually one of the earliest theater experiences that I can remember. That just goes to show you how ridiculous that was. Honestly, my number 2 is something that I wouldn't even feel right not putting after Bride of Chucky: Evil Dead 2. Since we talking about franchises that went from straight horror to being funny, Evil Dead 2 is the king of that. And I've yapped about Evil Dead enough for y'all to already know how I feel about this movie. This is the movie that literally saved Sam Raimi's career. It saved Bruce Campbell's career. If Sam Raimi was never successful with Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and of course Darkman, there would have never been a Spider-Man trilogy. But before Army of Darkness and Darkman came Evil Dead 2, and without Evil Dead 2, we would have never gotten none of those movies. Ash became Ash from this movie. The whole identity of the Evil Dead franchise really comes from this movie. Evil Dead 2 was so impactful and influential that people to this day either still don't know, or they like choose to ignore that the first Evil Dead was a dark, brutal, violent, mean ass horror movie, because that's been the biggest complaint complaint about the new Evil Dead movies. Oh, they're too mean, or they're too violent, they're too mean-spirited. The Evil Dead movies are supposed to be fun and campy. No, they're not actually. They're supposed to be mean and brutal. Sam Raimi just made a last-minute decision so he could protect his career. Evil Dead is supposed to be what the first one was in 81, but Evil Dead 2 is so powerful that almost 40 years after that movie came out, people are still begging for this franchise to return back to that. And to me, that influence is undeniable, bro. Ask many people and they will probably tell you that Evil Dead 2 is the greatest horror movie sequel of all time. But at my number one on this list, I have to put a movie that I have felt this way about since I was 11 years old, bro, when I first saw this movie. And it's also the reason why I chose 13 movies to count instead of my typical 10. That movie is Friday the 13th Part 2. This is my favorite Friday the 13th movie. This is my favorite iteration of Jason. Yes, I like pillowcase, one eyeball, dirty ass overalls Jason better than I like the iconic hockey mask. For one, it was a lot more believable because I know for a fact if I go to a campsite in the woods, I'm not gonna find some big swole ass demon zombie man with a hockey mask. However, if you travel too deep into the woods, there might be a chance that some crazy ass hillbilly with dirty overalls might be hiding out in the forest ready to kill you. That seems very believable. In fact, go to the Appalachian Mountains, go deep enough, you might find just that. I watched the first Friday the 13th movie with my pops and I enjoyed it. I really loved it. However, the part of that movie that scared me the most was when Jason came out the water, already establishing that Jason is the real fear of this franchise. No disrespect to Miss Pamela, because you were the GOAT and you are still the GOAT, and I can't wait to see the new Pamela in the Crystal Lake series. But this franchise does belong to Jason. So when my dad told me that in the second Friday the 13th we get to see Jason for the first time, I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. But what he didn't tell me is that he didn't have his hockey mask yet. So when I was watching this movie, I was taken completely by surprise, bro. And that is a core memory that I never forgot. I was terrified watching Friday the 13th Part 2. Genuinely, this movie and the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre are the only slasher movies that actually scared me. And everybody shows credit to Jason's first final jump scare coming out the water, but low-key the window breaking jump scare at the end of Friday the 13th Part 2, in my opinion, was just as good, if not better, because of one simple factor. They faked you out in the second one. The first one they didn't. They kind of did with the music and all of that kind of stuff. In the second one they did the same thing. They had the soft music playing, had you thinking you were safe, but then it led into what you thought was going to be a jump scare and had you on the edge of your seat, and then they revealed that it was just a cute little puppy dog. And then when you finally breathed, like, okay, whew, I'm glad they ain't gonna do it again. I'm glad they're not gonna do what they did with the first one. Boom, they did this shit again. Bro, you gotta give it their respect, bro. That movie was insane. I love Friday the 13th Part 2. And the way Jason's face looked under that mask, creepy as hell, bro. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my list of the 13 horror movie sequels that don't suck. This is definitely something that I can do a part 2 of, so if you want to hear me yap about some more horror movie sequels, hit me up in the comments and let me know. Also, before you leave, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button and leave me a comment. Maybe a small thing for you, but for me in this channel, it is huge. It's the way I keep going. But I appreciate y'all for rocking with me through another video. Y'all stay tuned for the next one.